Hello, Bengals fans, and welcome to Cincy Jungle's pregame tailgate show brought to you by Narragansett. I am Matt Minnick. With me, as always, we have Anthony Cosenza and John Sheeran. How you guys doing today?
Game day. Doing good.
I mean,
how are you?
It's it's 3 p.m. now. Like, we should be woken up this time, right?
Well,
I don't know.
Not 3 for me.
That's true. That's true. It is quite a bit later than it normally is for you too, though.
Yeah.
You know what? I need a little wake up too. Limited edition. I got the Narragansett Auto Crack Coffee Milk Stout.
Ooh.
I'm pretty excited. I literally made a special trip to go out. Called ahead. I used the beer finder and their website.
Nice.
Called ahead to make sure. Went to a different liquor store normally because they were on there. But we found it. I'm pretty excited about it. Give me a little pump of caffeine along with my drink to go along and get ready for this game. So,
what's the ABV on that bad boy, Matt?
What's that?
What's the ABV? What's the alcohol percentage on that bad boy?
It's a 5.5.
Okay.
Matt is so much better incorporating our corporate sponsors onto this program than me and Nathan.
Well, we got to move along. I had the Marsan Oktoberfest, and now we gotta move on. We're going on in the year, so if you like the lager is always good, but if you're a stout fan, if you're somebody that likes things are a little bit different, this is definitely a good one. Brian Bauman's a guy that likes some different things. He's liking your shirt.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys can see the
Tecmo Bowl.
You see the kicks?
Yeah, like the shoes too. Nice.
Yeah. I'm decked out today.
Myself, I get the Zubas on.
Oh, nice.
We get the Bengals Zuba pants, so feeling good. I just tweeted this a minute ago, but so I ordered this Tyler Boyd number name T-shirt a while ago, and I wasn't expecting it for like another week, and it just randomly FedEx pulled up on a Sunday on Tyler Boyd's birthday in a day when he's playing in his hometown. So feels like good signs, right?
Happy 26th to him. Yeah.
We need some good mojo though, because a lot of negative going on between injuries and COVID. We're looking at a very much depleted secondary, crazy weather going on in Pittsburgh and really throughout the area right now. So I mean, we'll see what happens with this, but we'll start with you, Anthony. What's your initial thought on this game?
Well, on a game preview I put up on Cincy Jungle, I think I predicted a high-scoring game, and now, I kind of did that because the Bengals' defensive backfield is so depleted, and now with the weather and all of that, I'm kind of questioning my decision-making process in that prediction there. I don't know. This could be the makings of a sloppy one. I don't know. We know Pittsburgh likes to run the football, and they're usually pretty successful at it against the Bengals. I mean, you can go back to Bettis and all kinds of guys that have been very successful, and maybe that's what they try and do today because of the weather. James, they've got Connor and a couple of other guys that they think they can maybe impose their will there. So maybe it's kind of a little bit of a game of keep away by Pittsburgh from the Bengals, because the Bengals offense has proven they can score some points. But it may be just with the weather and all of that, it may be not as high scoring of an affair that I initially thought.
I'm a little concerned too, because like Burrow's had some fumbles in the pocket, and if the ball is going to be wet, like that could be a bigger concern that maybe he loses one today, and they really can't afford that. John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think right now in Pittsburgh they had like a thunderstorm warning for the area up until like 3:15, and as of now, like I think it's still pretty bad weather up in there. It's supposed to clear out by 4, but it's going to be windy throughout the entire day. I know the Bengals dealt with wind against the Titans 2 weeks ago and still had success throwing the ball, but this defense is going to throw a lot of similar things at them that the Ravens did a month ago, and the Bengals have grown a lot since then. They are now the best third down passing offense in the NFL. They're a top 5 passing offense since that fateful game. So they've made growth, but the Steelers are still the Steelers. They're 8-0, and they have pretty much the best overall defense in the NFL, carried by that pass rush that is going up against an offensive line that is starting a rookie at right tackle and a spot starter at right guard, going up against TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuitt. So there's a lot of things working against the Bengals right now, but it's like Anthony said, we're probably in for a sloppy game once the weather clears up and they're ready to play over there.
Right, not raining right now, according to Tony. So, but yeah, no, definitely some concerns there. I kind of feel like defensively, if it's really windy and that's going to affect the pass game, like not that it's an advantage to the Bengals, but at least it mitigates the fact that they're so light at cornerback. That maybe that it won't be the shootout that I thought it was being. It sounds like, Anthony, you thought it was going to be too. Maybe they don't have to worry about that so much. But you mentioned the run game. The Steelers haven't been great running the ball this year. The Bengals haven't been great at stopping it either. And now, you look at the Steelers who struggled a little bit defensively to stop the run recently, but now they got Tyson Alualu back. I probably butchered that name. I think I butchered that name several times this week. So that's gonna help them a little bit in that area. So, and without Mixon, kind of makes you worried about that stuff. If it ends up having to be a ground game, could be a negative for the Bengals.
Oh, he's muted. He's muted.
Gosh, you think I'd learn this stuff by now? We're in the freaking Zoom era and all the StreamYard era. You'd think I'd catch on to the freaking mute button. Look, if you're talking about it may not play into an advantage for the Bengals running the football, I would agree with you because of what John was saying on the offensive line and just other issues. And they haven't really ran the ball well at all this year. I mean, really, it's kind of been the Jacksonville game, and that was about it. But I think what we all are encouraged about is that Bernard is making a lot of plays in a lot of different ways for this offense. He's getting kind of the different yeah, there you go right there. Marshall's talking about Gio right there. He's getting a couple of nice plays on the ground here and there. He's getting a couple of nice catches, a couple of which went for touchdowns. And then, of course, he's contributing as a blocker, picking up a lot of blitzers. So, I don't expect an outstanding, 150 yards rushing on the ground by the Bengals today with all of the factors going into it. But, I think we're learning that Gio is effective in this offense, and he is a weapon that Joe Burrow likes to use in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, no, a lot of it is like he fits better, with what they need to do. If it ends up being a ground game, maybe you're a little better off with Mixon, but Gio hits the hole, and where Mixon's kind of looks for the big play sometimes. So that can definitely be a positive with this offensive line, the way things are set up like that. And absolutely, the screen game has been awesome recently, but definitely be a positive. If they can get the run game going a little bit, just to slow them down, just to, get them to do something different, as we've seen in some of these recent games where they put Watt inside, they put Watt in different positions trying to stop the run. Anytime he is not on that edge, I'm feeling a lot better about throwing the ball. So it would definitely be nice to get a little bit of versatility, a little something different from that defense and slow them down a little bit. So, look, this is a huge game. The Bengals have not beaten the Steelers since the regular season of 2015. So that's like 10 straight games, I believe. They did get one win in 2015 of the 3 times they ended up seeing each other that year. You got Zach Taylor, who has never won a road game. It is not a primetime game, but it's a national television game. It's a flex to 4:30 game. So a lot of these things that have been issues for the Bengals in the past, now we're seeing. So definitely a great opportunity to make a statement, but there's so much going against them with all the guys that they've got hurt. We got all these guys on the COVID list, including not half the defensive staff, but a lot of the defensive staff. Is it too much? Do we think these are things that they can overcome?
I have no idea. Like we just learned a bit that like the cornerbacks coach and some I know Big Nell, the wide receivers coach, was left behind. So
the coach, the linebackers coach, Al Golden, who we have been told, I believe at least Jesse broke this, that he was responsible for not only designing the blitzes but also calling defensive plays on third downs, and so that guy's not there. Which could be a positive because it's not like they've been great in that situation. But so that probably reverts to Lou. And then it was the coaching assistant that works with the defensive ends and outside linebackers.
Right. They got a mini outbreak in Cincinnati right now with COVID. They still have I think 5 players on the reserve list now. 4 coaches aren't traveling with the team, so it will definitely affect I think how they operate during this game. Whether it has a big impact, I don't know. Like I think with Golden, it was going to be hard to pressure Ben Roethlisberger today. Anyways, he's incredibly quick to get the ball out this year. I think for the past 4 weeks in a row, he's led the league in like quickest time to throw. He's been the least pressured quarterback in the NFL in that same time frame. And Seattle's offensive line's still pretty decent, even though it's not as good as it used to be. So it's hard for any team to really pressure Ben. And even though it's not the same Ben Roethlisberger that we've seen in the past, a guy who's like extending plays and avoiding sacks and creating out of structure, it's just been really systemic in his play style and just getting the ball quickly to his receivers. So even still, like the pass rush was going to struggle today, even with the return of Sam Hubbard. But it's going to be interesting to see how those assistant coaches handle increased responsibility.
We talked about this on Friday, Matt, on the Listener Questions Live episode, and John just touched on it. It's that first contact on Ben Roethlisberger. What happens there? Are you going to be able to get him down today? Are you going to be able to get him to the ground if and when you are able to generate pressure? Whether that's Sam Hubbard, whether that's Carl Lawson, or whoever. If you're able to generate pressure, you have to get Ben Roethlisberger to the ground. For years, the Bengals have been able to get pressure on Roethlisberger, but they were not very good about getting him down on the ground on initial contact. And what happens? Broken play, usually a big one. So that cannot happen today. And as John mentioned, and if you checked out his Twitter account, he put out some really cool tweets that had some in-depth stats and things of that nature about the Steelers, their offense, and just stuff surrounding this game. I mean, as you just mentioned, their offensive line is protecting him pretty well, and he's getting the ball out pretty quick. I think, John, that was one of your points you put out on Twitter too, that Ben's getting the ball out pretty quick. So it's tough. It's tough to get him down as it is because he's a big guy and he seems to be able to break away from sacks. But that's just, to me, that's one of the keys this week. You got to be able, if you're able to generate pressure, you have to get him down or you have to force him into making a bad throw.
Yeah, and they're just not getting enough pass rush over on the season. We're hoping maybe there's more out of Geno Atkins at some point, but now Geno Atkins, has a family situation, he's not going to be there. So Hubbard's something that helps. It's another guy that can get after the quarterback a little bit. It's more than they had. It's more than they had a week ago. It's somebody that they can put in the interior on third downs and get a little bit of pass rush from that area. So, that's the big concern, though. And when we were looking at it before, the weather appeared to be a factor, and maybe the weather won't be a huge factor. It seemed like it could turn into a shootout, and that potentially could have been the tipping point. In the shootout would be the Bengals' lack of pressure and the fact that the Steelers are, I believe, the best in the league at getting after the quarterback. Watt is the dude, but Dupree, Tuitt, those guys can get after as well. Hayward getting into the backfield as well. So they've definitely got a bunch of guys that they can get after it there. And in Cincinnati, you got a rookie playing his second game at right tackle. Admirable job last week, but against a much less talented group in Tennessee. And now he's flipping over to the other side where he hasn't played since he was a freshman in 2018. And I think he only played the beginning of his freshman year at right tackle in 2016, excuse me. So, I mean, that's the matchup to watch. If everything else is if everything goes as expected, and it ends up being that, the pass rush, can the Bengals get the ball fast enough? Can they impact Roethlisberger. That really seems like it's going to be the deciding factor in the game.
And I think what people are talking about a lot is that, it was a discussion of whether or not Quinn Spain was going to start at left guard, but then I think that quickly resolved itself, and Michael Jordan was going to take that spot back. And then everyone thought, okay, I guess Spain's going to take right guard. Nope, it's Alex Redmond who's starting at right guard today. But I think, as Matt mentioned on Twitter, it's not necessarily about who starts; it's about who finishes. And like we saw in Week 8, Spain was thought to be rotated in and out at left guard with Shaq Calhoun, and we all saw how the game ended. Quinn Spain played, I think, 62 snaps in the remainder of the game once he got in. And maybe that's the case today with Redmond. It'll depend on how he handles this Steelers front four. It's obviously a vaunted one and a vaunted unit, and a lot of pressure is being put up on Redmond, but they wanted the guy that's been out there for the past month now at that position. And as long as he's healthy, he's going to have that spot with Xavier Su'a-Filo still technically on injured reserve. So Spain will be ready to go if he's called upon at either right guard or right tackle. I think there's a report on All Bengals saying that he practiced at right tackle this week in case they weren't comfortable with the Dennegy at that spot. And obviously Bobby Hart's still out. So, they have some sense of continuity on the offensive line, but it'll be interesting to see how the situation unfolds during the game.
Yeah, you mentioned the continuity. I mean, that's huge. That the first time Dennegy started, they only had one starter. They had Redmond, who had started the previous week and who had started most of the year. This week, Adeniji is going to be the only guy who wasn't starting before the bye week. It wasn't a regular starter before the bye week. So, now you can address that a little bit more because you've got Jonah and Jordan. If you feel comfortable with those guys, hopefully you feel comfortable with those guys. But now that right side's the issue, and maybe that's where Gio and Samaje are putting their attention. Maybe that's where Drew Sample has really improved a lot in pass protection. We talk about Gio. Gio's incredible. P. Ryan, I think, has been pretty good when he's been in there. I would say he's between Mixon and Gio, and Drew Sample really seems to have improved over the course of the year too. So hopefully. Was Drew Sample's first ever game action? He went against Watt and gave up a sack. I remember that.
It was week 4 of 2019. Yeah. I remember he did not.
That just occurred to me as I was saying that. So
I think that was the Monday night one too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What's that?
I think that was the Monday night one, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember if Sample was active the first part of the season, but that was definitely one of the first times people noticed him, and it was not good. So.
Yeah. So that was a big one for a rookie. Now you got another rookie at the right tackle spot, again playing in a bit of an unusual spot for him, trying to figure that out. So we'll see how it goes. But it looks like our guest has arrived. So we will move on to the next segment here and introduce Nicole Zembrote. She writes for SI Now and All Bengals. She is also a former Bengal herself, was a member of the front office. So, Nicole, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. So, we're just kind of getting a little bit caught up on what's going on and all the injuries and all the COVID issues and things like that. What are your initial thoughts, your kind of initial take on what you expect from today?
Just what a week. You start off with a bye and then COVID hits, and COVID hit fast, spread through the locker room. Now we have the assistant coaches dealing with it, and they'll be out for today. And then injuries. You guys, I've watched beginning of this, and you guys hit on a lot of it. What's the secondary going to be like today? What's the weather going to be like today? To me, one of the keys is control what you can control. And we'll see what happens from there.
Absolutely. So, it's the kind of the old and the new matching up. I think that Roethlisberger has been the guy in this division for quite a while. And
I have to say, Big Ben is Iron Man. He can't be brought down. And when he got hurt last week, I was just I have a feeling he's going to be playing next week, and then all the COVID news, I was like, if there's one person that can beat COVID, it's Big Ben. So I didn't think he was not going to play today, and just wanted to prepare for that. So yes, definitely Big Ben's been a bother for the Bengals for years. And you guys hit on it earlier too. It'll be interesting to see, like, we've gotten pressure on him, but who can take him down and make that big play in the backfield today?
That's such a coincidence because apparently Iron Man is a Steelers fan too. So.
How about on that one?
I think I was Team Iron Man in Civil War.
Nicole, it's Anthony. Happy to have you on the show.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a moral victories kind of guy, but given I don't know, if the Bengals play well, still lose, given all the COVID stuff and the injuries and all of that, still being a team in transition with so many new faces all over the roster. I mean, if they at least make a good showing, should we feel pretty good about that, you think? Or is a loss, a loss is a loss is a loss, but
obviously, yeah, a loss is a loss. No one likes to lose. And I asked, just like, what's your take, especially like in a tie situation? Would you rather see the half glass empty or full? Like, and everyone was like, we just don't like losses. So, but this is an 8-0 Steelers team. Their defense is really good. And yes, they've been playing, had their struggles the last few weeks, but they're really good, led by Minkah Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt. But if we can continue to show what we showed in the Tennessee game, I think that is still momentum, and we have very winnable games coming up, and we need that momentum bringing into those games for the rest of the season.
Nicole, we've all greatly appreciated and enjoyed your coverage of the Bengals on SI Now. It's for the first 8 games, the first 9 weeks. What has been like the biggest surprise to you for this team? Like the record, they're about where they probably should be, but some players are playing really well. Some players have been underwhelming. What has been the biggest takeaway for you from the first half of the season?
I think the biggest takeaway is a lot of people are forgetting that no one across the NFL had a regular offseason with all of the COVID restrictions. They didn't have proper training camp or like just OTAs or anything. So you're seeing a lot of these teams starting to sink and get in their groove. And that's what we're seeing from the Bengals. And they have been in pretty much, besides Baltimore, pretty much every game. And I sat down with Billy Price in the bye week, and he was just excited to get going in the second half and continue to carry this momentum as the team continues to grow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Billy Price is a guy that's been a bit embattled, and he's not had an easy run from us, from fans, from people that talk about the team. And definitely things haven't gone the way he would have liked to in his career, but he does seem like a guy who's really all in, and Zach Taylor talked about it, but everything you kind of see that he does and all of his interactions, it really seems like the guy is bought in. We had some negativity, recently with everything that went down with Carlos Dunlap, but do you think that this team is fully bought in, even some of those guys that maybe aren't getting out of it what they would like to?
Yeah, I think definitely any kind of change, big change. Obviously Marvin was here forever. Zach comes in, brings in a whole new staff, and it's going to take, again, growing pains are going to happen, and these guys are finally starting to get what Zach is bringing in and getting behind it, and we have the whole offseason with the aggression and free agency, and then drafting guys that fit the mold, and they're bringing in the pieces. And even just now with the additions of Spain, with the trade, with just they're picking up, and Tack, with the addition of Tack too. Like, there is a whole new culture, and these guys are getting behind it. And the tide will turn, and I hope to see some W's coming up as we hit the second half of the season.
Nicole, I'm going to borrow a line from Michael Scott in The Office,
I love it.
and say,
I have to wait.
I need you,
Here.
I need you to, I need you to explain the Alex Redmond situation. Explain it to me like I'm 5, because I don't, is it this like kind of the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or I mean, do they just really like his experience? Do guys? I don't know. I mean, I think we've been clamoring for a move to be made there for a while, and they keep going back to him. I guess as a whole, the line plays a little bit better, but you still see some of the familiar mistakes. I don't know. They just seem to really like him a lot more than a lot of us on the outside do. So I'd love to get your thoughts on him. And obviously he's getting the start today.
I think it is like the Bengals approach. They like their own. They like to grow and develop their own, and they see something in Redmond that they like and they want to keep him. I think too, though, it's going to be a battle along the whole offensive line come the second half. These guys are going to be playing for jobs for next year in the future. So it's going to be survival of the fittest along the line.
Yeah, Nicole, I'm going to put. Or go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to add to that they definitely haven't been shy about trying to make improvements. Well, definitely rolling with the guys they have. They're bringing in BJ Finney. They're bringing in Quentin Spain. They're making moves to get more competition in there. So it's a nice little balance. They're not going to bail on guys just to bail on them. I think a lot of times as fans we're like, well, get rid of this guy, cut him. It's like, okay, well what then? Regardless of whoever we're talking about, what then? Somebody's got to line up there on Sunday. So it's good to see that they're balancing. They're letting their guys compete, but then they're also bringing in guys for them to compete with.
Right.
Go ahead, John.
This game quietly has 2 of the best rookie receivers in the NFL right now. You have T. Higgins for the Bengals, but you have Chase Claypool for the Steelers, who I think is right behind Higgins in terms of total yards. You might even be ahead of him. Who do you think has the better day today? Because both of them have pretty good matchups.
I think it is going to be tough. And I wrote about T. Higgins, like I said, he's heating up, and he's slowly but surely becoming Burrow's go-to guy behind Boyd. I want to say Higgins has it, but I also think that Claypool has a big game too. But when we factor in the factor of the weather too, Matt, you guys alluded to a tweet earlier, like I think the weather favors the Bengals in the passing game because the Bengals are going to have to do a lot of quick passes, slants, and dump offs, whereas Big Ben can really go downfield and hit those receivers, and the ball might not be able to travel well with the winds in Pittsburgh today.
Yeah, it'd be interesting too. Like with the wind, does that create more turnover opportunities?
Right.
Is the ball going to float? Maybe that's an advantage for Jesse Bates. Could also be an advantage for Minkah Fitzpatrick, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. And especially with the lack of secondary in Cincinnati right now with all the injuries and COVID issues.
Right. It's crazy just how fast that COVID has hit and taken down that position room. I mean, with the speculation, if John Ross was healthy, he could be out there and being a DB. It'll be interesting, too. I want to see how they play Sean Williams and Brandon Wilson today. If they do step up at all or have their number called to play different positions in the secondary that they're not used to with the lack of players.
Yeah, it's a good call. I think, anybody can jump in on this. I think Brandon Wilson had played a little bit of corner in the past. So, maybe don't put him on the outside, but maybe that's a situation where you can bump out Mackenzie Alexander's done that and play him more in the slot. Tony Brown also.
Right.
We didn't get a preseason, but he looked pretty good in the mock game. So,
and that's what stinks, like not having the preseason is guys like Tony Brown didn't have their chance to show that I can be this really solid backup and rotational guy. So I am excited to see what guys like Brown and some of these practice squad players that were called up, what they can do today.
It's also a testament to like Brown, the fact that he didn't get a preseason, yet he still made the roster with his Oregon training camp, right? And I think like the one guy that we may see in this game on the practice, there's a couple of guys that got called up. We had Stanley Morgan, who's probably going to play a ton of special teams, which he excelled at last year. You obviously have Quentin Spain, who's maybe the first guy off the bench on the offensive line. And then also Jalen Davis, the guy who's essentially the fourth cornerback today. You know, like they're going to have Bates and Sean Williams and Jesse and Brandon Wilson playing all over the secondary, but Jalen Davis is going to be the first guy called up if there's something happens to any of the starting cornerbacks. So depth is going to be tested today, and like you're right. Like they have 4 practice squad call ups, and I think 2 of them were designated as COVID-19 replacements, which is why they can even have that in the first place. But we might see like the entire roster being played today.
Right. All 53, especially if it's sloppy, and you never know what's going to happen in sloppy games. Injuries can occur. Like your number is going to get called, and just be ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, if it is raining, if it is sloppy, like at the end of the day, it's kind of an equalizer. You know, like yes, it will affect both teams, but I feel like it creates more opportunities for the underdog than it does for the other team.
And in a game like this, we're going to Heinz Field. It's just Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh game hits differently. Like we can obviously rivals with Browns and Ravens, but there's just something about Pittsburgh that hits differently, and emotions are all over the field. I mean, I remember even in the front office when we would have be working Steelers games, and it's just a whole new atmosphere.
I think a lot of it's just frustration, right? Like this is just 2 teams that one team just wins basically all the time. Like Matt said, like Bengals haven't won since 2015. And even before then, it was still pretty largely one-sided. Even though the Bengals had more wins every now and then, but this is largely just a new coaching staff, largely a new roster, and a roster comprised of guys that haven't been a part of this rivalry for a long time. So they know the history of it, they know the recent events of it, but they weren't here. And I think it bodes well that they come in with a new and fresh attitude, and they haven't been here for some of the struggles, and that could them them as well.
Right. I'm trying to pull it up. James had he wrote in his predictions for the week, the overall record, and it's just so one-sided Pittsburgh, obviously, but
if you look
fun
at
when we're both good.
I think it was Wikipedia, like the rivalry has its own page on Wikipedia, and like you can click on it by decade, and it's like color-coded who won, and it's like
just yellow.
It's like all black basically, except the 80s. The 80s were pretty good.
Hey.
Go to the 70s, it's literally all black. I think Cincinnati didn't win a game in Pittsburgh the entire 70s, which makes sense because of how good those teams were in Pittsburgh during that time frame. But
all right, I got the stat.
Pretty crazy how this thing is gone.
Pittsburgh leads the all-time series 66-35, which includes a 34-16 record at home. Big stuff.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. And I think 4 of the last 6 wins for the Bengals though have come at Heinz Field. Like towards the end of the Marvin Lewis era, I think they had more success on the road than at home, which is crazy. But
I forget what it is, but something about Roethlisberger is incredible in the state of Ohio, which makes sense that the Browns have been bad. But he's an Ohio guy. For whatever reason, he's been really good in those games in Ohio.
Like, wasn't it he had more wins in Cleveland than Baker Mayfield, or like something along the lines of something?
He's going to get more wins in Cleveland than anybody going back to.
Oh yeah,
like that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous to think about with some of that stuff. I mean, just a team. It stinks because you hate them for so many reasons, but they're good at being good. They always manage to seem to build something, put something together. So, which just makes them
respect that, unfortunately, from our side. But you do,
basically.
But the fans were getting up in arms about the Bengals tweeting the Ushmanzada terrible towel video.
That made national media.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I doubt the players are that sensitive to that sort of thing. I'm like, all right, whatever. But so, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? What's your score prediction? How do you think this is going to go down today?
You just look at Steelers play. They've really given up some big yardage on the ground to last week to Zeke and to Tony Pollard, and then 265 to Baltimore. So I think it'll be really pivotal for them to get Gio going. And you guys touched on it earlier too. Gio will be great out of the backfield, but in pass blocking, I wrote on that for SI. I just think he's going to be a very pivotal player in this game. But I think it is set up to be a trap game, especially if it is sloppy. We could see a start like Dallas and Pittsburgh last week with the Bengals hopping out. They just need to finish, and they haven't finished until Tennessee, so they need to finish the game. Unfortunately, I still think Pittsburgh's going to come out on top of this one, but be closer, and I have Pittsburgh winning 28-24.
All right, competitive. Like we said, We're not all about moral victories, but I think there seems to be a sense that this is going to be a blowout, and I really don't think that's going to happen. So, I definitely think it could be one of those situations where it's going to be going to come down to the wire. Not having a chance with it. So,
I think special teams is going to be a huge factor too, just because of the weather conditions. What's it going to be like for Randy and Kevin kicking the ball? What's it going to be like are there going to be missed PATs or field goals? Like you look at the Cleveland game, it is 10-7 in Cleveland, and they're experiencing that same weather right now. So it could be like you guys talked earlier. Anthony had a very high scoring game, but it could turn out to be a very low scoring game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those things that hopefully the coaches were looking ahead to it. When they were game planning, like I wasn't really thinking about that type of stuff earlier. Especially, I'm in Rhode Island, so I'm really not thinking about that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down. Definitely a huge opportunity for the Bengals. We got an undefeated team that probably shouldn't be undefeated. You've got a lot of things going against them. Just like 2 weeks ago, they had a lot of things going against them. It's Tyler Boyd's birthday.
Love it. Feed him. Big levels. 2-6. Hometown. You got to feed him. Selfishly, too, because he is my wide receiver on my fantasy team. So we need some points.
Might as well.
Yes.
All right. Well, Nicole, appreciate you joining us today. We'll let you get situated. Grab your Guinness or whatever you're going to be enjoying while you're watching the game. We'll excuse me. Appreciate you being here once again. Check out Nicole. What is your Twitter handle? Just so a lot of people that are tuning in asking about who you are and where they can find you.
Yes, my Twitter handle is @NicoleZember, literally spelled the same way as my name at the bottom of the screen. And Matt, you pronounced my name correctly at the beginning of the show, and I very much appreciate that because a lot of people don't. I put it phonetically into my Twitter bio so people can. So yes, that is where you'll find me.
Very happy about that. I was really concerned about it. And I was like, we're bringing in mid-show, because normally I ask people on my podcast. I always ask people, but I looked at your Twitter and I out loud because of the fanatic, so that worked for you. So, well,
yes. So find me @NicoleZember.
And I really hope you would have called me out if I didn't get it right. So, all right. Well,
Thank you guys.
Join us and definitely give her a follow. Some great Bengals content there.
Thanks, Nicole.
Good day.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate it.
All right. So we are about 15 minutes until kickoff. So we'll go for about another 10 minutes here. So we'll get to our own predictions. We already got Nicole's. We'll get to our own predictions in a minute. What are you guys' thoughts on Ben versus Burrow, and just kind of what you're seeing out of these two guys right now, during this season? Contemplate.
Like, we don't know how many times we're going to see this matchup. I mean, who knows how long Ben is going to still play for the Steelers or just play in general. But again, I think it goes towards the same line of thinking. Like, this is the first time in a while that the Bengals are going to play the Steelers without Andy Dalton on the roster or playing. And I think the dynamic changes a little bit because of that, at least in just the mindset of how they approach this game. Because I think Ramon Foster, who was a former Steelers offensive lineman, he tweeted out, like, while Andy Dalton got the start for the Cowboys about a month ago, like, it's why the Steelers were just never scared of the Bengals when Andy Dalton was out there. And who can blame them? Like, they had so much success against them, and he was the driving force behind whether that team was successful or not. And the Steelers always beat up on him in most games. And now the dynamic changes a little bit with Burrow, but this is still Burrow's first time playing against this defense, playing behind an offensive line that still has a lot of work to do, a lot of proving themselves to do against a pass rush that can win against anybody. So it's really going to come down to that, like how Burrow can manage this game and how much growth that he can show against the defense that's going to attack him, very similar to how the Ravens did a month ago. It's gonna display how much growth that he's actually made and whether or not he's up for this right now. Because if he has a bad day, I don't think anyone's going to be terribly surprised because the situation is just stacked against him. But there's a chance where he can just rise to the occasion, just play well enough to keep this game competitive. And obviously, Ben has had success against the Bengals for his entire career. Until he stops playing, I don't think we should expect that to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said before, I don't think this is going to be a blowout, but it certainly could be if Burrow doesn't step up. It could be that situation. Baltimore was not really a blowout because the defense played pretty well outside of the first quarter. I don't know if I see the defense being able to step up like that in this game. So you really need to be able to do something offensively to compete with this team, to compete in this game. Anthony appears to be in slideshow mode right now, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get anything out of him. Anthony, can you hear me?
I've been able to hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're like you're a sequence of still pictures here.
I'm on the move. I'm on the move. It's an away game for me this Sunday, so apologize about that. But hopefully you guys can hear me. Yeah, I mean, if you want to kind of romanticize the thing, about the Big Ben Joe Burrow dynamic, there's the whole passing of the baton of AFC North Kings, that sort of thing. But first things first, Joe's got to play well. This offense has to play well. And, if I don't think any of us are really expecting a Bengals win today, but, if Joe plays well, and heck, if they do get a win, I think it's a pretty big statement going forward and a good step for the Bengals. Even if it is just one game against the Steelers, it's a big win. It would be a big win against an undefeated team. So, I think that's a big storyline, Ben versus Joe. Hopefully Joe steps up and plays pretty well today against that defense. Hopefully he doesn't get banged up from where they can generate pressure, which is pretty much everywhere. So that's something to also watch out for today.
Yeah, and that leads very well into our predictions. And I'll start off here. Just everything I'm hearing, especially today, and like some of the things that Ben has said, I think they're sleeping. Like I think they think it's going to be easy, and I think they've had a tendency to do that this year. So I think we're going to see the Bengals jump out to a lead early in this game. Now, here's what's bad about that is that the Bengals have not been very good at protecting leads, and the Steelers have fallen behind, have slept on teams before. But once they wake up, once Ben starts clicking, it can get out of control for and for the other team, and they can come back. So I think we're probably going to see a relatively similar game to what we saw last week with the Steelers Cowboys. I think the Bengals are going to jump out. They're going to surprise some people, but I still don't know if they can protect it. I don't know if they can finish the game. So I think the Steelers will probably be able to mount that comeback. And look, I'm saying this based on the past, based on we haven't seen this. If the game goes that way and they do protect the lead and they do fight off the comeback, honestly, that's better than blowing out the Steelers, in my opinion. It says a lot more about this team, and it shows a lot more progress from this team if they can do that. But I'm going to go ahead and say, it's Nicole's number sounded pretty good. I'm trying to not go with Nicole's number. I'll go 21-18. I don't know how they get 18, but I'll go 21-18. And I think that the Steelers probably come back and pull it off. Man, I'm wrong though.
Yeah, like I remember us saying, or maybe it was just me and Anthony, like before that Ravens game, like, yeah, it's gonna be closer than we expect. You know, they're not gonna get the Ravens are gonna cover that spread, which is like 12 at the time, and it ended up being disastrous. And I think it was disastrous in part because how much the Bengals turned the ball over. Burrow fumbled twice, he threw that terrible interception, and honestly, I think that's what's gonna come down today. If Burrow has a relatively cleaner game and doesn't put the ball in harm's way and doesn't give the Steelers more chances to score on the Bengals defense, I think they can make this a close game. They can make it a one-score game throughout. They can battle the Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers are just a better team right now, and they're better in more important areas. So I think that's ultimately why the Steelers win. But if the Bengals take care of the ball better in this game than they did against the Ravens, I think they have a chance to make this close and have a chance to win towards the end of the game. I don't think they're going to actually win. I think it's going to be like a 23-17 game if that's the case. But if there's fumbles from Burrow, sack fumbles, if he throws an interception or two, I think the game can get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers aren't invincible. They've got some weaknesses. They've shown it. I've kind of called them the imperfect team with the perfect record right now. They've got some flaws, but they are good, and they're good in very important areas of the game. I mean, I guess I'll stick with my 40-33 score I put on Cincy Jungle. I'm not real confident that this is going to be a shootout after all, but I'll stick with that. I think the Bengals put up a good fight, but unfortunately, I just don't think they're there yet. Maybe they get them on the rematch on Monday night at home.
Yeah, I mean, getting one of these games would be absolutely huge. And, you've got, between these two games against the Steelers and the Ravens, like they got to figure something out. And I think, John, you kind of touched on it too. I think seeing more out of this offense against a talented defense and seeing how they have grown and how Burrow has grown since that matchup against the Ravens, that would be huge. To hit on what Anthony was saying before, we don't want to, we don't want to rely on moral victories by any stretch, but that would be a great situation, to know that they're getting better in that area and to see those things. There are some winnable games in this backstretch, but they need to win some games that people don't think are winnable to really, show that they're better than what they are. Because at this point, beating the Washington team and the Giants, and even the Texans and the Cowboys, it's like, all right. What does that do for anybody? They're all going to be picking at the top of the draft as well. So they got to figure out how to beat some good teams here. So all right, we're right at the 4:20 mark, and that gives us about 5 minutes to kick off. So we're going to have the High Neighbor hit of the game, brought to you by Narragansett and the Narragansett Fresh Catch to take you out. So you can watch those, get a little bit of positives. Maybe we got a little negative here. So let's see some good Bengals plays, get you pumped up for the game as we get you ready to go. Make sure you tune back in, come back right here, wherever you're watching right now, post game. And Anthony will be back with the post game reaction show at that point. Hopefully, calling all of us stupid for not having that faith, for not believing. So, all right. Again, yeah. Thanks for joining us. Grab a Gansett. Get ready for kickoff.
And now for the Narragansett High Neighbor hit of the game. Linebacker Logan Wilson started off spread out in man coverage on the right back. But as the back motions into the backfield, Wilson comes into the box. Again reacting to the running back, who picks up the blitz of safety Von Bell. Wilson blitzes and gets the sack on quarterback Ryan Tannehill. The rookie linebacker would later say he made a mistake on this play. But the best way to make mistakes is full speed, and that's obviously what he did here. It may not have been how he was supposed to react, but because he played with conviction and went full speed, he came up with the sack. This was a huge play for the Bengals defense when they needed it on third down, and it's this week's High Neighbor hit of the game, brought to you by Narragansett. And now for the Narragansett Fresh Catch of the game. Late in the game, the Bengals were trying to get another first down to keep the clock moving and the ball out of the hands of the Titans. Burrow threw a ball high on the sidelines to Auden Tate, and Tate went up in the air and made an amazing catch. Zach Taylor would later call this the best catch of the season, and it couldn't come at a bigger moment. Auden Tate had played a limited role in previous weeks, but stepped up big time this week. On top of being an incredibly athletic play, this catch all but sealed the deal for the Bengals, and that's why it's this week's Narragansett Fresh Catch of the Game.